Why does content from organizations suck most of the time? That's because they aren't content creators. I'm a content creator. And over the next 8 weeks, I'm going to be going over the content of every single League of Legends team in North America and breaking it down from the absolute basics. Because honestly, the heck is this? The Content Kingdom starts right now. We're going to start with the absolute best team currently in the LCS that's making content, and that's Team Liquid. Team Liquid have the highest quality, have the best thumbnails, have the best titles, and there are still things that they aren't doing that great, and there are things that they are doing phenomenally. We're going to example 3 thumbnails and titles, because at the end of the day, people need to click on your video, and your thumbnail and title are what get people to click on your videos. So the 3 that we're going to examine is this Girls Rank Riz from League Pros, this Impact versus Keen, whatever, all those players, and then guess the rank. And we're also going to look at an example of something that really worked, Who Is Not Challenger. So those are the 4 thumbnails that we're going to be examining. Why are thumbnails and titles so important? A video only becomes popular. People only go viral if people actually click on your video. Unlike shorts, where the first few seconds is the most important things, videos, full-length videos, have 3 requirements. The first few seconds, your title, and your thumbnail in reverse order. Your thumbnail is the most important thing. You saw that thumbnail earlier from Immortals, and we're going to get to Immortals, but I wanted to start with a really good team first in content creation. It really matters. Like, if you can tell immediately what's happening at the glimpse of an eye, it's going to stick out compared to all the other thumbnails that might be on your homepage. The other thing is the title. Does the title add to the thumbnail? Do they work well together? And do the first few seconds sort of confirm that click? That's a concept you'll see people who are huge in content creation, like Mr. Beast. Am I clickbaiting you? Or are the first few seconds really confirming that, yes, I actually want to watch this video because of the title and the thumbnail? Now, if you look at Mr. Beast, he starts his videos this way.
We're now stranded on this deserted island in the middle of the ocean!
Right? He's confirming the click. You wanted to see this wild adventure, and that's exactly what you get the first few seconds. Now, the first thumbnail I want to examine is this Do Pro Gamers Have Riz? And I've sort of maximized this thumbnail because, you know, obviously it's going to look very small on a video, on your YouTube feed, but I want to sort of highlight a few things. Look at the title and look at the thumbnail. When you look at this thumbnail, Do Pro Gamers Have Riz? You already know exactly what's happening. It's a girl who is rating pro gamers Riz. Right? Now, when you make this smaller, it doesn't really work, which is another thing that you have to really examine, because if you look here, you can't even tell that this is Yeon, right? You really have to squint to tell who the players are. You can tell that there's a girl, you can read the text, everything else, not that great. Now, Girls Rank Riz from League Pros. They're almost restating, right? You don't want to restate a lot. Now, if you have a girl ranking Riz from League Pros, if you want to put the title as a title, and you want the thumbnail to do its own thing, then do that. And that's something that I feel like Team Liquid and a lot of other organizations, most organizations I'd say in the LCS, don't understand. Like, look at this. Look at that. The LLA, I know we're not going to go on deep dive onto this, but I do want to compare to other things. Like this example, we'll get to it too. The idea of like having all of this text, making our dream team, like you're putting too much text. And I want to put a few examples of, actually, I'll share one example of a thumbnail that is phenomenal. And you would know exactly what the video is about without a single word. Voila. Just look at that. You know exactly what's happening. There's blood on this guy's fingers. There's a shark coming. You know exactly what's happening. You did not need any words to convey what was happening. You really did not, right? Now, I'll show it to you smaller because obviously when I'm maximizing things, it's a lot clearer. You can see it right here, right? It's clear as day. You can tell there's a shark. You can tell he's in water. You can tell he's bleeding. Is the shark going after him, right? Now, this got 115 million views. Now, I know he's a huge content creator, but this is another huge content creator that made the same video using a different thumbnail. Can sharks smell your blood? With a picture of a shark in a black background. It still did relatively well, 45,000 views, but that is less than 1% of this video, and they're both the same concept. You see how the title and thumbnail can completely change. This is 1,000 times bigger. I cannot emphasize how big of a difference that is. This one as well. It's like, this one is 1,000 times bigger, and it's exclusively because the thumbnail is just that much better. Now that we've gotten the importance of thumbnails, out of the way, let's go back to Team Liquid and their obsession with using words. You did not need to put words here, right? You actually could have said girls rank was from League Pros. And then you could have done something like one of these videos, like this one, one nerd versus 100 supermodels. When you look here, you could have put a girl, and then you could have put League Pros in the background. Let's get a picture like this so that it doesn't autoplay. You could have had just a bunch of League Pros. They didn't have to actually be, they could just been generic nerds or gamers or whatever, and a girl, and the title and thumbnail together would have perfectly came together and gave you the idea of what you needed. Right? Every time you add something to a thumbnail, because there's such little real estate, like look at how tiny this is. If I just open YouTube, right? Think about which one your eye immediately goes towards, right? There's so much going on in a lot of these, like this thumbnail has so much. I didn't even look at this. I didn't even know what it was until I actually had to look at it, right? This one is the one that stood out to me. I could see immediately, I knew what it was, right? It's one image, a background, and some text. And that's sort of a good combination, you know, when you have just a background, like 3 things. Mr. Beast has a rule. He's like, we don't put more than 3 things in our thumbnails because you put any more and it just doesn't make sense, right? Your eyes don't know where to look, especially because it's small and it's competing. There are so many different thumbnails. There's 6 thumbnails that are showing up here. Normally, it's even more, right? Like there's so many things that are competing for your eye attention that you really need to be like precise in what you want to put. And so that's my first criticism for this thumbnail here. I think what you could have done is you could have put a girl, you could have put a bunch of pro players. It did not have to be actual League of Legends players that are in the video. It could have just been a random bunch of people. And you didn't need this text. You could have saved yourself a lot of real estate and you could have made it look a lot cooler. So that's this first thumbnail. Now let's examine this second thumbnail. Impact versus Keen and Bin and Broken Blade. When it's smaller, you can barely even tell. You can't even tell that this is Keen. Honestly, you kind of just know. But, you know, Broken Blade and Keen, it's just very, very tiny when you minimize it. And so what do I think you could have done better? Well, you could have actually just had a face of Impact and a face of just one of these, right? And have them face in front of each other. Get rid of all this text. Get rid of all the text. You don't need all that. You could have like a boxing ring, right? And you can have Impact on one side and like 3 or 4 different people on the other side. And then with the title, you could have done something like Top Lane Challenge, right? Or Top Lane Fight, whatever it is. It's not necessarily trying to say you should do this. But the idea is you convey exactly what's happening as well as some mystery, right? People, when they see it, it shouldn't just be clear what you're doing with your title and thumbnail. It should be obvious, yes, and it should also make you want to click on it. It should make you curious enough or scared or happy or excited, whatever, some sort of emotion. It needs to elicit an emotion so that you actually click on the video, right? Now this, a little curious, what is Impact doing against all the others? But I think if you put a fight, you know exactly what's happening. You probably want to see Impact versus Bin. You want to see Impact versus Keen, right? And so give me more of that. And have it making me read this tiny little text where like it's competing against all this other stuff. They do it again here and they do it again here. They've used this format more than once, 3 times. And I'd say this probably underperforms their regular, like an Impact versus Keen, Impact versus Bin is probably a huge thing. And the fact that them making a dream team got more views, I would say is probably because of the title and thumbnail. Now moving on to the last thumbnail, this is one where it's like, there is way too much going on. Guess the rank, right? With CoreJJ and Umpty, you already have them in the thumbnail, right? Now you actually, these are the actual people that were in the thing, and you're already telling us what the rank is. So it's a little bit of spoiler, but it's so small that you actually can't tell who is who. I could not tell this was Mayumi. I couldn't tell like anything, right? You can't even tell that this is bronze and that's challenger. Like it's really hard, which kind of helps you, but you already have the title, 2 League randoms, 2 League Pros rank 5 randoms, right? You didn't need, like either you say guess the rank or you say that happens. What you could have done is you could have had more of intrigue. Like this doesn't elicit an emotion. Like I'm not even sure what's happening here. Am I guessing the rank? Am I ranking them? I'm not entirely sure. Now a thumbnail that does a phenomenal job, and you can see it in the views, by the way. This thumbnail here is phenomenal. You see Pole Belter. It doesn't actually matter who it is, right? You actually have the people here, which I don't necessarily like. I think if you just put random people, or even if you just put stock images, whatever it is, if you really want to use their images, I feel like it limits you a little bit. I think you could be a little bit more creative with what's going on. I think there's a little bit too much. You have like the challenger mark, and then you have who is not challenger. Then you also have that in the title, right? 5 challengers versus 1 fake. You don't need to say that, right? So get rid of who is not challenger because we already know there's 1 fake, right? The blindfold says it all, right? You are blind. You don't know what's going on, right? Everyone's blind, by the way. You can't even tell that everyone's blind. There's this guy who's blindfolded. He's trying to find who's not challenger, right? It's like an imposter syndrome. So I would say the left side of this could definitely be changed, but this does a very, very good job at eliciting this sort of emotion of like what is going on, right? And that's what you want with a thumbnail. It's like, I know what's happening. I know this League of Legends related. I know someone's not challenger, and there's like a blindfold, like we don't know, right? Are they going to be able to find out? It's sort of like a mystery, right? Guess the imposter. It gives exactly what the title is doing, and you can see in the views, it's 267,000 views. It's almost double this other one, and they're relatively similar concepts, right? And in general, when you do similar concepts, and one of them outperforms the other, what you want to do as a content creator is you want to look, why did this one do better, right? So that you can learn from it. In this case, this one did worse. This one came afterwards. You say, why did it do poorly? Was it the intro, right? Because it's something I'm not necessarily going to go into this video. I don't want to get to be too long. I could go on and on and on about every single video, honestly. But like, I mean, come on. This one is, yeah. I mean, you already have CBLOL, LCS, LLA in the title, explained by CEO, and then you have all these titles. There's just too much going on over, like, sometimes the text, the certain font that they pick is just not that great in my opinion. There's a lot that could be improved. Now, this is the best team, right? Their thumbnails overall are pretty good. Next episode, we're going to be going through other teams, and I don't think they're anywhere near as good as these titles, these thumbnails. But I cannot emphasize the difference between this thumbnail and this thumbnail. It is 1,000 times. It's the same concept, but just put your head around it. You could have one person that you're talking to, right? As like you're giving a speech in front of one person, or you're giving a speech in front of 1,000 people, right? That's the difference. That's just a whole nother magnitude. At some point, numbers are just numbers, right? What's 100K to 100 mil? Like whatever, they're just big numbers. But when you really contextualize it and you're like, oh, I could have $1, right? Or I could have $1,000 each day. Like they're just very, very different. And so it's extremely important that you really hyper-analyze these things because that's how you grow. And if you don't, then you're just shooting your shot in the dark and not knowing what's happening. You're just hoping things stick. And that is not a good strategy. Regardless of what you're doing, just spray and pray and hoping something sticks on the wall is not the way to go. I will touch on a couple of small, tiny things that I feel should be obvious, but not many editors know this. First of all, League of Legends Pro Tours Brazil, right? You already have CoreJJ in Brazil. You have Brazil in the title, and then you have it in the thumbnail. You could just put a flag. He's wearing a Brazilian t-shirt. You didn't need all of that to like emphasize Brazil. You're also not saying why he's going to Brazil. Like you're saying that in the title, not the thumbnail. Like what is going on? Now, you might not know this, but you can have a title in 2 different languages, right? So sometimes when I click on a video, the title will be in Korean, right? But then when you click on that video, when you see that video on your thumbnail, it'll be in English. And that's just because we have different language settings, right? And you can actually go in your settings, and this is sort of a note to the editor. This isn't necessarily like genius or whatever it is. You can pick which language, right? They clearly wanted to do something in Brazilian, right? Because they put it in Portuguese. You could have had separate titles so you don't have this long title that looks kind of similar, right? That's just a very easy thing that you could have done that you did not do because you didn't know about it. The last thing I want to talk about for Team Liquid is hyper-analyzing your thumbnails and your title and your intro, and then the whole video as a whole. You really need to analyze. Here are 2 videos that have a very similar concept to what they did. Who's the Imposter? Black Person Edition, right? And you can see that this video kind of underperformed. This channel has 1 million subscribers, 1.23 million subscribers, right? And this video got about 167,000 views. That's less views than subscribers. Versus this one, which has 2.8 million subscribers, very similar concept, but has 6.3 million views, right? Almost double, more than double what the actual subscriber count is. Now, this video succeeded versus this one. Why? You could look at the thumbnail, maybe the title. Maybe one's more important. Like the title is different. 6 old people versus 2 young people versus who's the imposter, right? Maybe actually writing that out makes a difference, right? These are the type of things that you need to learn, especially when you're copying from a different from a different channel who's already much bigger than you and you're trying to take inspiration, right? You're putting your own spin on it. I'm not saying that you're plagiarizing or anything. At the end of the day, you're taking inspiration from other people and that's great. A lot of innovation is just inspiration from multiple different places with a touch, right? But then you have to actually look. Maybe the way they started this video wasn't that great. Maybe the way these people started the video was just phenomenal, right? When you compare it to your own video, you need to think and be like, hey, well, we actually got similar results to this video over here, right? What if we wanted to be more like this video? What would we have to do different? And then when you do that, you see maybe it wasn't, maybe it was. You have to be purposefully producing content so that you actually learn. Every single piece of content that you make should have some sort of learning behind it, right? Whether it's confirmation that what I'm doing is working, whether it's like, oh my God, this could have never worked, but I never would have known had I not tried. Maybe it's like, hey, why is this working for other people and not for me? Let me iterate on it. Let me do something. But at the end of the day, you need to learn from your content. One last thing, again, I know I said one last thing, but I wanted to highlight this point because I feel like I didn't do a great job at highlighting it. Your title can have words just like here, or like the shark video that I showed earlier. The idea is, what tools can you put so that you best emphasize the video and curiosity, right? Something very clear that brings curiosity, that brings whatever emotion you're trying to elicit, right? And here, I don't need to tell you what's happening in the video, right? You don't need to see the title. Now, the title is going to add to it, right? It's going to give more detail. It's going to make you want to click on it. And then we're actually going to watch like the first 3 seconds of this video and see he does exactly what we think he's going to do, right? It looks like he's stranded on an island, right? It looks like he's like in the middle of the ocean on a beach or something, and it's day 6 and he's like completely haggard. He can't escape. He's scratched. He's bruised up. If you actually look at the video, you can kind of tell it's smaller, obviously, but 7 days stranded on an island. And then when we click,
we are now stranded on this deserted island in the middle of the ocean. And
it tells you exactly, it's 7 days stranded on an island, right? We're stranded on an island in the middle of the ocean. The thumbnail, the title, the first few seconds all work together so harmoniously. It's perfect. Thank you for watching the very first episode of Content Kingdom. Now, thank you to David for that name because I had a bunch of other names and I thought this name was really cool. So thank you for actually responding and commenting. If you guys have better names, put that in the comments and we'll see. I also want to say, I'm not saying Team Liquid is doing a bad job. They're the best at it right now in the League of Legends scene. And there's still a lot of room to improve. So, next episode, actually, write that in the comments too. Who do you think I'm going to be doing?